So I'm going to issue quote requests on this job for Coast. So the first thing I'm going to do is come across to the quote request template on the tabs up across the top. And normally what you would do is you would apply the template. Now, applying a template will pull in the list assigned by you for that consent authority. Each consent authority can have its own list of preferred suppliers for that region. And the consent authority that it pulls from is the one in this location here, Nambucca Shire Council. So if, for example, I came to main menu, business contacts, and what you're going to see me do may take a moment because I've got access to a lot of suppliers and I also have access to a lot of databases. So I've just got to choose this option here so I can identify the group that that company belongs to. If you're working within your own database only, that's not necessary because you're only looking for your consent authority from your own business contacts. So Nambucca Homes Coast, Nambucca Shire Council. Now, when the consent authority option is selected for the industry, it becomes available as a consent authority on the cover page of iGyro and also available in iProcs as a consent authority. Also, it will enable this suppliers tab, which won't be there unless this option is selected. We come across to the suppliers. It allows you as the business owner to maintain a current, at a point in time, list of those with whom you wish to be sending quote requests to for a variety of things. I always suggest you actively maintain this list. If someone says they don't want to quote on your work anymore, take them off. If you're finding that they're consistently too expensive to the point where you're just wasting their time and you're only even getting a quote request, take them off, add fresh new suppliers, so on and so forth. Effectively, you want this to be a very, very comprehensive, long list covering off all different types of construction, steel subfloors, appliances, even tapware if you're in the process of tendering that periodically. This gives you estimators, I guess, clear, concise directions with whom they're going to be sending things to, so that potentially they aren't sending things to a supplier with whom you don't wish to engage with. Like I said, you're just wasting their time and others. So for example, this one here I'm going to remove. They moved out of the region a short while ago, so I'll just get rid of them. This supplier here, the local franchisee, was dissatisfied with the product they provided, so I'll remove that. Meaning we're left with Bunnings as a frame and truss supplier only. Now they're considered the premier frame and truss supplier in town, so that we won't even be tendering to others. The price that they provide to us is always competitive based upon our years of experience, so we're not going to go and waste their time and anyone else's tendering the project when really all our intentions is to give it to Bunnings. The floor system we're also able to source from Bunnings, which is Wesbeam or Tillings or anything like that. Spantech, now our relationship is actually indirectly with Spantech. We buy from Bunnings the Spantech system, but in terms of the design criteria and the design process, the way that ordinarily works is we contact Spantech directly. We send them the plans, we send them the quote details, and we liaise with them very, very closely. We have a good working relationship. And then at the point in time where they're ready to actually submit a tender, we ask that they send that via Bunnings, because Bunnings have a better discounting structure than us. And then we can buy from Bunnings, which then also enables us to collect cooperative rebates based upon volume and benefit from Bunnings' exemplary credit terms. Concrete roof tiles, CSR is our preferred supplier, but we don't do many concrete roof tiles generally. Stoddart's for roofing, once again, premier product in town, amazing service, amazing price. They've even gone out and repaired some roofs for in town that they didn't even do the work on many years later that had leaked, just due to their generosity and goodwill. Dowell and Trend, while Dowell is the preferred window supplier, the local franchisee also likes to keep Trend in the mix, so we send one to each for comparative purposes and allow the franchisee to make an informed decision. CSR Gyproc's a little bit the same as Spantech. While we have a relationship with CSR, effectively we buy the product from Bunnings. The franchisee is actually really, really happy with that service. He loves Bunnings, loves the local account managers, and says he gets just a great service going indirectly. Doesn't have to maintain an extra phone number, doesn't have to worry about building a relationship with someone new, doesn't have to worry about another credit account, another payment terms, all the rest of that stuff. It's just bang, pay Bunnings. So once again, similar to the Spantech system, we send the email to CSR's takeoff service. CSR's takeoff service do a takeoff for us at no cost. They then send that back to us, and we're then able to key a purchase order to Bunnings in BuildIQ based upon our line items. We have hundreds and hundreds of CSR products fine-lined on our Bunnings contract at really, really attractive prices. So we can just key the actual takeoff as quantities and send it to Bunnings and say, deliver this. A couple of different balustrade suppliers, 2 different kitchen manufacturers, ceramic tiles. Beaumont's our preferred supplier in all instances. 2 different options for appliances depending on the brand. For example, Reese we would buy Smeg and Beaumatic from. Harvey Norman we might buy Bosch or Westinghouse or other such things if the owners decide to look outside our standard offering. Air conditioning, we've got Grafton Air. What we're now going to do is actually add Cough's Air Comfort, because Grafton Air have said that it's Nambucca is too far from their locality. Reinforcing, while we have ARC here, we don't actively use them or even ask them to tender, so I'll get rid of that. Waste treatment reports, we'll leave that where it is for the time being. Nambucca Shire Council, quality tanks, once again, get rid of ARC. Screw piles, we have both options available to us, Katana and Blade Pile, but historically Blade Pile have been more competitive, but I find it's useful to get a take from either what their preferred depths are. Sometimes you send the quote request, the same geotech, same plans to 2 different places. One person comes back and says, I've quoted 74 piles at 1.4 meters. The other person says, I've quoted 50 at 2 meters and 24 at 1.5. And you say, okay, why is that? So just getting the 2 different takeoffs allows you to really drill down, have a look at that geotech and go back and ask the question. Sometimes one of the suppliers hasn't paid particular attention to the cut and fill platform, and for example hasn't allowed that one half of the house is now 500 mil higher than was originally shown, and while you've got to get 1.5 embedment, the screw pile's obviously got to sit immediately under the slab, which means where you're on the fill, the piles might need to be 2 meter lengths. So I find that just getting them both to tender is really, really helpful for drilling down where those pile lengths and quantities need to be. So everything else here looks current, accurate, and fine. So I'm just going to hit save. And now the next time a job has its template applied afresh from Nambucca Shire Council, those suppliers only will come in. Now, as I said, this one here has previously had quotes issued, one in particular back on the 4th or the 5th for metal roofing. I think we were trying to firm up a bushfire PS amount. So I'm just going to get rid of these all for a moment and just reapply the template. There we go. Now what we'll see here is we've got a range of different files being picked up, all to be sent to the council, which means there's something going wrong here in our folder. So there's only one file here, but for whatever reason, there we go, just needed a refresh. There was previously 3 drawing files in the drawings folder, all with the name council, various ages, so I'd moved out the older ones and potentially just hadn't hit save, and so the quote request hadn't refreshed and looked at the folder again to notice that it should only be sending 1. Now these red exclamation marks indicate that something is intended to be sent with the quote request, but it can't find that file. Now it's telling you the friendly name known in the cost center, so it's saying the friendly name for the missing file is engineering. Obviously the engineering file will have a intelligent or smart cost center name that will dictate how it needs to be named from a file naming convention. So if I come here to Coffs Coast, come down here to engineering, so it's looking for anything preceding the word engineering.pdf in the engineering Dropbox on the individual job. Now, because this job hasn't proceeded to having engineering done yet, there's a range of quote requests we're not going to be able to send at this point in time. Once we have the engineering, we can send those. All right, so there's no waste. There is a wastewater treatment system in effect on this house, but it's actually an owner-supplied sewer pump-out station out in the front crossover, so we don't need to worry about either of these items. Cameron's actually going through a complying development system and has already got all the council approvals in place, so we don't need to worry about getting a quote from council. Now, we are going to get a quote for steel frame and truss, but what I didn't notice was that Superlock was still in the list. So come back here. So the mob that we're predominantly using is actually Steelhouse Frames Australia. And Brenton, I believe, is the New South Wales account manager. So jobs, let's double click on this. That's better. Now, while 321 is actually calling up the engineering, it's not entirely necessary. The steel frame system is a supply and install system where they do all their own engineering. They design their own tie down, bracing, and all the rest of it. So while it's calling up the engineering to be sent as a quote attachment, that's not necessarily necessary or logical. So I'm just going to come back here to cost center edit, come down to 321, and just get rid of the engineering as a quote request item. And do the same on franchising if it's still there. There we go. Now, I may need to reload this module. There we go. So it's going to attach the frame and truss edge. It's going to attach the wind classification so they know what they're designing to. It'll attach the geotech. Now, the reason it's doing that is because in some regions, the wind classification is actually embedded in the geotechnical report. In the Coffs Coast region, however, they get two separate files. So once again, if I come here to Coffs Coast, it's not even using the Coffs Coast list. It appears to be using my user databases list. So there's no way I can fix that at this point in time. However, if a local franchisee in their own database went to send those files, it would look at their list for their database and send their files. And the council plans. So we double click on the item, we have a look at what's inside. Now, many of these are pre-filled question and answers based upon what we've ordinarily done in the past. So steel truss, 1200 spacing, ceiling battens to the underside of the ceiling throughout, 450 centers, frame material steel, frame spacing 600 mil. And what it doesn't ask for is installation, because as I said previously, not all frame and truss suppliers do install. Please also include a separate line item for the installation for the supply of all tie down bolts, threaded rods, etc., and the installation of the system, including the install of all external windows and doors and the internal garage door. Save. Alright, external windows and doors, including any hinged. And we're going to press send. Now it's turned this from a working template into an actual email. It's got clickable links in it now, and it shows you what's actually been sent through. Momentarily, I'll also receive an email from, I guess, myself. iJaro spoofs your email address, and it'll show up as an email to the person and one for me so that I know that it's definitely gone out, and so I can file that email as if I'd sent it from my own email account. So we've covered off frame and truss. This job is steel frame and truss, so we don't need to get a tender for timber. It's also on a concrete slab, so we don't need to worry about either of these floor systems. There's no structural steel, it's just a very straightforward slab on ground. There will be screw piles necessary, but until we get the engineering design, we obviously can't request that. It's metal roof, so we don't need to worry about the CSR roof tiles. Now, metal roofing, we obviously got a quote on the 4th of the 5th from Stoddart's, and we've got Bell 29 and coastal proximity includes patio addition. So optional price given for upgrading roofing screws from standard class 4 to class 5. Overflow clips, unslotted gutter, fixed at 450 centres in accordance with BAL 29 requirements with temporary downpipes. Supply and install lightweight isolation, based on trusses at 600 centres, so that's not actually correct. So what we now need to do is email the supplier back. We're not going to worry about sending a separate quote request. We'll just email from this email back to Peter Thompson. Peter, we have opted to go with steel house frames and trusses from your sister company. Can you please update your quote to suit 1200mm truss centres, also to comply with the level 2 detailing in the blue scope document. But you need to add immediate safety battens to the trusses. Let's have a look what else we got there. Half round, flat back, unslotted, perfect, perfect, perfect. Everything else seems fine. I may also ask him for an upgraded quote for Anticon just so we can present that to the client. Please also provide an alternate price, separate line item for 60 Anticon. I would like to present this to the client as a variation instead of the sarking and multi-tell. That's that one email. Alright, please see latest plans just in case there has been a variance along the way. So now, because we're sending it outside the system, responding to an email in our own email account, we just need to grab the PDF and send that over. Now we can get rid of this alternate Stoddart one. And what we can do is inside the system, we can mark the date the files were received and also attach the quote files within the actual supplier, so that if we ever want to find a quote received from them, we can find it from this list. So this one here we obviously haven't received. This one we have, so I'm just going to go to attach. Come down to the quotes folder and look for anything with Stoddart's in the name. Bath, tanks, dowel, turf, Bunnings, so we've got 2 Stoddart's here. With the first one being received on the 12th of the 5th. So we come here, date received. Now we're not going to mark it as accepted yet because we don't have a quote request actually back. Now you can write internal comments in here that'll I guess, be helpful for you, or alternatively, you can just write it against the quote item. So I'm just going to here and say, do not use, require, revised quote with intermediate roofing battens for 1200mm truss centers. Requested 820. Where it's just an old one, I just say old, do not use. Come back here to quote requests. So we need to request, so we've got some Dow quotes in there by the looks of it. Dow Windows 4, direct from Dow, BAL 0 with assumed basics and BAL 29 with assumed basics. We'll need requoting via Bunnings when basics and DAs received. So council related, we don't appear to have a basics yet. So I need to get onto the draftsman and find out the status of that and why that hasn't been requested, and get that underway today so that we can actually send through a proper quote request for that. Otherwise, it's just going to be assumed and we'll be going again. However, I can't manually mark this as date requested, unfortunately. I can, however, mark that we received a quote, and I can attach those quotes into it. So we've got this one here and that one there, with the first one being received on the 10th of the 5th. Oh, wrong one. And once we've also got the basics, we can request a quote from Trend for comparison as well. Dow and Dow. Come on. Damn it. Now we need to get our CSR takeoff done. Now I'm just going to get rid of this orders email address, and I'll get rid of that out of the business contact shortly. Now you'll see these items here in red, they're question and answers. So it's asking about the frame centers, which may affect the sheet sizes that they provide. So we've got 450mm external and 600mm internal, or 600mm external and internal. So we're doing 600 as we've requested from the frame and truss guys. Wet area board, aqua check to kitchen and laundry splashback with 6mm salmon seal elsewhere. See, that's in black because it doesn't require amendment. 35mm on concrete slab and 50mm on timber steel subfloor, refer to plan architecturals. That's fine. Truss centers will be 1200mm. Ceiling battens, yes, at 450 centers. Once again, that's in black because this franchisee always battens their ceilings irrespective of the ceiling centers. What I am going to say, however, and I'm going to update the template in a moment to say, is please include as a separate line item, do not lump in with the wallboard. Floor system centers we can get rid of. Cornice, we just need to check the quotation. I have a feeling it's an upgrade, so it may not be any of these. So we'll just hit save and have a look at the addendum or the iProcs. So it says that there is a range of options, Aria, Duo or Presto. Unfortunately, the price of each and potentially the lengths of each all vary. So now we just need to have a look at the color selection document, which unfortunately has not been uploaded. So I'm now just having a quick look through my emails to see if I ever received a copy of it. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like I've ever gotten a copy of the document. Further, it looks like the client's making some changes potentially to their cladding types, and also potentially to what's going on the plans in relation to their robes, which will have an impact on our plasterboard quantities. So these Oh no, they are shown as square sets, so that's fine. So there's no actual doors there, there's no tracks. All it is just a short nib return with a square set. Question is there actually a detail? Square set. Square set, good. So until we get the actual selection, I ordinarily wouldn't request the quote request, but I think if I come here into our price file just for sake of having a look, 530 cornice, looks like they're all available in the same 4.8 meter lengths. So it doesn't really matter which one we request, they're just going to send us quantities, and we'll just substitute it when we actually know the choice. We'll just make a note on the quote request that we've requested based upon just the first choice. So iProx. So let's just say ARIA 75 mil, excluding the entry, which is square set. So 530 square set to entry and 75 mil. Was that duo? $50 mil duo, no. This alto trio, maybe in trio elsewhere. Please pay particular attention to the robes as they are square set all way around, cornice at the top. Refer to the detail on page 10 of the plans. So that's all fine, that's all fine. I'm going to take this here and put it into the master template in a moment. Not cost centers, quote templates. We'll come back here to 321 and we'll update the requests for the frame and truss as well. There we go. Back to the job. Dun, 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 and press send. Now there's no balustrades on this house, so we can get rid of that. We do, however, need to get a kitchen quote, which I'll do in a moment. Sorry, no, we don't need to get a kitchen quote because this is actually the kitchen manufacturer. So they'll be providing their own kitchen. So no external balustrades. Ceramic tiles we do need a takeoff done. So they're entitled to a color selection and they already did one. So unfortunately, until I get the color selection document, I can't fill out what the tiles are and actually issue that one. Appliances, I think for all intents and purposes, they've just upgraded. So any kitchen appliances. Looks like potentially owners supplying their own kitchens, their own appliances as well. So we can get rid of that as well. One and that one. Reinforcing, we can probably do that take off ourselves, so we'll leave that. And the air conditioning, I suspect there will be air conditioning on this job. No, no air conditioning potentially. There is no external air conditioning units. Nor is there any outlets shown. So we can forget that as well. So now what we're waiting on to send the remaining quote request is a copy of the colour selection so that we can write in the tiles that have already been selected and send that off to Beaumont's to get the quantities. We also need the basics and nathers completed so that we can send out revised window quotations to Dow and Trend, and we need the engineering so that we can request the reinforcing and also the screw piles. Mostly everything else, as you said, it's a very short list of the items that we need to get tendered in an ordinary home. You know, we've got set rates for concrete supplies, set rates for reinforcing. It's just usually helpful to get them to do a takeoff for comparative purposes, just to make sure that nothing's overlooked. We've got the plasterboard ourselves. We obviously just get a quote so that we can once again check their takeoff versus our own. Waterproofing, that's on line item rates as per our agreement. All our PC items, unless the item client has selected out of range, is already in the catalogue ready to go. There's very, very few instances in a job that actually requires quotes. Most things will just be each items, linear meter rates, square meter rates, items from Reese, items from Bunnings, so on and so forth.